Oh my God, we are back with yet another episode of Grindhouse Chic. As always, I am Robert Schneider and I am joined by Matt Armstrong and the on-time Brian Baldwin.
New and improved, baby.
Oh, this is uncanny. This is uncanny. Guys, we have a lot to talk about on this week's episode, but I want to start off with a rant. I want to start off with something that really pissed me off. I, should we? Has everyone got their orders in for September?
I did, yep.
Yeah. And one of the movies I was most looking forward to was from TerrorVision's Blood, Gut, and Sunshine. I am a sucker for documentaries about film. A big fan of The Other Hollywood, Machete Maidens Unleashed. I even kind of like the folk horror documentary. And after watching Blood, Gut, and Sunshine, I felt like I was watching. It's a 2-hour plus movie that I felt 90 minutes of it was a commercial for all these videos produced by a select group of companies in Florida. And
that's kind of disheartening to hear. Okay.
And I realized it was because the makers, the producer and director of those films are the same people who produced the films that they talk about. And
so they just took the opportunity to advertise the hell out of their films.
yeah. And here's the thing: I wanted to know more about the history of Florida film, and they cover a little bit of in the first half hour, but it didn't give me a point of view. It was like this title. Elijah Wood talked about Tim Ritter on the Late Show with Craig Ferguson, and I expected something more, and it's one of the first purchases that I've made in a while that I am regretting. I am regretting it.
I'm really bummed to hear that because it was like a no-brainer for me when I scooped it up because I've watched some interviews and heard some discussions with Herschel Gordon Lewis regarding filmmakers in Florida, and I was like, I'd like to expand my knowledge on that. That seems pretty cool. Doesn't sound like I'm going to get that though.
No, again, in the first half hour, you get a very brief synopsis of it, and then it just really jumps into shot on video. And I have no problem with shot on video movies if they're good or they're creative. Like I did watch one yesterday, and I can't remember the name of it. I was one from Visual Vengeance.
Oh, Slaughter Day?
Yes, that one is. Yes. Yeah. Because it was 50 minutes. It was insane. And while I did have a problem hearing the directors yell their direction in it and their copy of the however you pronounce it, was bought at fucking Barnes and Noble because it was the H.R. Geiger one.
Was the tag on it?
Yeah, no, there's no tag, but it could have been Borders books at the time because it was the 90s. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I thoroughly enjoyed Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2 Return of the Fucker.
Yeah, I'm house sitting for my sister this week, and I brought those with me. I'm hoping to squeeze them in.
I was worried because they are German, and while I speak remedial German, there's very little dialogue in those movies. Just a lot of grunts and screams.
Selling it, baby. Selling it.
But it's interesting on that one. At least there's two versions of the movie on there. There's the original cut that came out in VHS back in the day, and then there are the director's cuts, which are shorter. Oh. I went with the original cuts, just how I would have watched it back in the 90s, and this was the first one that I wished I actually saw back in the day. Mm-hmm. That I wished I ordered it from whatever magazine I could order it from, and enjoy every second of it, because that would have been a lot. That would have been great sitting in my house in college with my roommates and friends going, this might be the greatest film ever made.
Are those SOV too?
They are SOV.
Yeah.
One's 35 minutes, the other's 40 minutes. So it's the perfect length for SOV. So what did you guys think of the pre-order announcements from yesterday?
I was pretty pumped, specifically for Don't Open Till Christmas. I love that movie, and I'm happy to upgrade my old
Did you just buy it?
It's been about a year. We don't need to talk about that. You guys know how that goes, right? No, I did. I scooped it up last Christmas season. But the seller is someone I've bought up of numerous times. He doesn't scalp the shit out of his stuff, so I felt like it was, at the time, it was a fair price for it.
That's good.
Yeah.
So it's a weird month for me because I've only heard of 3 of the movies: Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which I adore; Don't Open Till Christmas, which is British; and Moon of the Wolf, the VSA release. Which, Matt, you were telling me yesterday you thought that was just a weird announcement.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just because we've been getting nothing but like weird action movies from it, but I do remember them saying that the VSA line was supposed to be like direct to video movies, and
this wasn't direct to video. This was a TV movie of the week.
yeah, that's why I kind of thought it was a weird one too.
But yeah, I am.
You're just looking over it. You're like, but Billy Blanks isn't. There's some mistake here.
What do you mean this doesn't have Cynthia Rothrock, Don the Dragon Wilson, or Billy Blanks in it? This has to be a mistake. Are we getting the fugitive David Jansen retrospective now in VSA?
Excuse me, Mr. Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah, it just struck me as odd at first. I mean, it's whatever, obviously, but yeah, I just got used to action on that line, I think.
That's fair. I mean, that's what they've been doing. I guess the Grave is a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
The Grave feels like a movie that was only made because Tarantino started making movies.
I liked The Grave.
I liked it too.
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool little movie, and honestly, not one that I would have expected to see. But yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah. So I have never heard of Blood Delirium or The Werewolf versus Vampire Woman. And to be honest, I'm not the biggest Paul Naschy fan. I find most of the movies he's in kind of boring. Like Count Dracula's Greatest Love, which if it wasn't for the nudity in there, I think that movie would no longer be on my shelf if I wasn't a completist. Have you guys heard of either one of these?
No, not me.
Nope.
I feel like I'm in like a fucking. I can't get any good lighting. It doesn't matter. No, I haven't heard of them.
All right, let's talk about partner label real quick. Which ones are you guys most excited about?
I'd have to look over them again. I will definitely scoop up the whatever the Amityville one that's coming out.
The Amityville Curse.
Curse, yeah. There was one other one too that I was pretty stoked on, but I can't recall off the top of my head. Maybe it'll come to me.
I regret not ordering that one. I ordered the VHS Hit Fest Blood Hunter. I'm giving them one more chance.
I still haven't watched Corn Shucker. Yeah. I'm kind of scared.
Cutter's Way from Fun City Editions. December. I kind of regret ordering that. I did not read it. I just assumed it was a film from the 70s or 80s or early 90s, but no. I did not research it, but
that's what I thought too.
Yeah, that was the other title. And I just love holiday horror. I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't an earlier one, but it may still be good.
The one I'm most excited about is from Factory 25. Alexander Rockwell's In the Soup. Have you guys... first of all, do you guys know who Alexander Rockwell is?
No, for me.
I do not either, no.
Okay. He first came to my attention in the Tarantino helmed anthology. Well, he helmed the sequence, the connecting sequences, and the final story. 4 Rooms. He was one of the directors, along with Allison Anders and Robert Rodriguez, and he was the only one I had not heard of. I went and found In the Soup and absolutely loved it, starring Seymour Castle and Steve Buscemi. It's a movie about making a movie.
Is it a comedy or drama?
It's a comedy, yeah.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed it. But Seymour Castle's great. Alexander Rockwell's great. Jennifer Beals, Sam Rockwell, Stanley Tucci, Jim Jarmusch, Carol Kane, Debbie Mazur, Elizabeth Bracco, Will Patton. Yeah, this movie.
Lots of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, very excited about this one. And then from AGFA, the Shock-O-Rama video party.
Yeah.
4
I'm
movies.
excited for that one.
4 movies from their video masters, because all the elements are lost. I think it'll be up there with last year's triple feature. And then Villains from Gunpowder and Sky, which I hear is a good movie, and then the movie Vortex from Utopia that stars Dario Argento, which I hear is really good as well. So I spent too much yesterday, and I feel guilty.
Did you order all of those?
No, I ordered all the ones. I ordered all the ones I mentioned.
Yeah.
And I need to read them more carefully. Like I didn't read them till afterward. It was like doot habit. Ooh, Argento.
It's so easy to do. Yeah. No.
It's something I need to stop doing though. It's not a good habit. I was really upset with how high my bill was yesterday, and it's like, fuck.
See, that's how I do now, and of course this is saying if I do get the halfway subscription, which I did again this year as well. But Vinegar Syndrome titles and BSPs, BSUs and all that, I really sometimes I don't have I have the time, but I'm like you, I just click. Now the partner labels nowadays I do kind of put on my reading lessons. Okay, yes, and pick like that.
The problem is Matt, I think you said it a couple weeks ago, is the fear of missing out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, before we all came out, I was finishing watching Devil Rider from Culture Shock, and I felt like I could have missed out on that one.
Yeah, I've kind of gotten to the point where as soon as they're announced, I go through them all and just all of them that are only like 1,000 slips. I throw all those in my cart right away without even looking at them, and it's just like I should at least see what the movie is first.
Well, it's like I know what I'm going to get with AGFA. I know what I'm going to get with Culture Shock, and then the other ones I just have to be very, very, very select about. And I think that's how it's going to be in November, because they're going to announce the partner labels at the beginning of the month, and then we're going to have the big sale, and I'm going to save the money for the sale.
Right.
But I will say the one I really enjoyed so far, I've watched two of the Vinegar Syndrome movies. I watched Amityville Horror, which, you know what? If I could have bought that house for $80,000, I would have let the ghost win.
Dude, yeah.
Flies, ghosts, evil spirits.
I don't know if you've seen it, but I sent a screenshot when I was watching it. I was like, God. It's like, I fucking wish I could have lived back then.
It had a boathouse.
Yeah, man.
Evil spirits, boathouse.
All right.
I can set fly traps on the windows.
He did what to his kids? I don't really like mine that much anyway. I mean, how much did you say? 80,000.
They're not my real kids. I also watched Edgar Allan Poe's Buried Alive.
I've started that one. I fell asleep. Not a comment on the film. It was just very late. I need to finish that one.
I had no idea where that one was going, and I enjoyed it all the way until the end. I'm very shocked that I don't think Ginger Lynn had any nudity in that movie. Maybe I don't remember, but I think I would have remembered going, well, you know what? Maybe not with her because I've seen her naked so many times in other films.
Mhm.
And then I think the highlight so far for me has been Saturday Night of the Baths from Altered Innocence.
Is that a documentary?
It feels like one, but no, it is a love story about a guy and girl who moved from Montana to the big city. He's a piano player, and he gets a job at the Continental Baths, which was a real place. It was a gay bathhouse, and then after the gay bathhouse ended its run there, it became a sex club that lasted many, many years and was featured in the documentary American Swing, which I have a feeling at some point Vinegar Syndrome, one of their partner labels, will release. But there is a part that feels like a documentary because they were known for having really extravagant shows. Like artists like Bette Midler was an artist in residence there. In this movie, you have Shirley Bassey, who sang the theme to Goldfinger, perform there. And it was a really enjoyable film, and it had some good extra features that gave you historical context, which Blood, Gut, and Sunshine was very much missing. But no, I really enjoyed it. And again, Altered Innocence to me usually puts out their gay porn has probably been the best stuff in my opinion they put out in a lot of films that are way too artsy. But it's always good to see 70s and 80s queer cinema, which really hasn't been getting that big of a release anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I enjoyed that one. Acting sucks. I'll just say the acting sucks in that movie.
So you brought up Amityville Horror, and we always talk about Vinegar Syndrome, like picking up these mainstream movies and kind of going against the grain of what their original mission statement is. And I was thinking about it, and I feel like I've changed my tune on it. I feel like it's a good thing now. Specifically just because I feel like it gets people to a place where they can discover more movies, because none of these other movies anyone has ever heard of, including myself. But if I hear like, oh, there's a cool new like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 release out, and they go check it out, then they see all this other stuff. And I think it's a good way to kind of open up a...
Let me ask you this. If Vinegar Syndrome wasn't putting out Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 on 4K, would you upgrade?
I actually don't have it, so...
Okay.
I would.
Yeah. It seemed like there were a ton of features on it too, if that's like your...
Are you
your
asking
thing.
like if I mean, let's just say, Scream Factory did it again or whatever and upgraded it. Are you asking like if someone was to announce, any company was to announce the 4K of it, I would pick it up? Is that what you mean? Or
Yeah, like,
would I prefer to see a different label do it?
I mean, if any company was releasing it,
Mhm.
and maybe this is me where I'm at my point in collecting, I don't care. I mean, the Blu-ray still looks fucking great.
Sure.
And I don't know, like, I don't know if I would be so glad to pick up the 4K of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. And that's something, that I've discussed with you guys lately. I think the reason I'm so quick to say absolutely I would is because I'm still kind of on that mission of like, am I going to upgrade everything or am I not? And actually, while we're on the topic of it, you guys may or may not know, did you all pick up any of the 4Ks of the Halloween? Not the 95 through whatever, but the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Nope.
You did,
I did.
Matt? Have
Yep.
you popped any of them on yet?
No, I need to actually check them out. I heard a bunch of Screams 4Ks were coming in like greasy or something.
Well, that's good to know too, because it was kind of weird. But I watched Halloween 2, and I don't know whether I just need to do like a software update on my setup or what, but there were some parts that were like very obviously go into kind of like it came across as slow motion, and I'm like, well, that's not supposed to be that way. And I rewound it, and a couple of them would fix themselves, but I just thought it was very strange. I haven't watched the first one yet, so I don't know, but nor have I heard anyone else mention it. So I figured I'd ask you guys.
No, I am content with my Halloween Blu-ray set.
Yeah.
And the movie still just, I don't know how much better they need to look.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know Scream 2 is coming out on the Tuesday after we record this, and I'm debating whether I need to pick it up on Blu-ray, on 4K.
The Scream franchise, I probably will end up doing. I've got, God, I can't remember who put out. It's a really weird French release of Scream 1 through 4 or whatever it was, right? Yeah. And it looks fine and everything, but I'll probably upgrade those just because I don't really care for that release. It's very bare bones. So,
and I think that's the other problem. With the exception of Arrow and their 4Ks, I have a problem that the special features aren't on the 4K itself.
That's kind of annoying. Yeah.
Like, at some point I know I'm going to watch Thriller, the X-rated version of it, but I want to see the documentaries, and I'll admit I'm a little lazy.
No, that is pretty annoying. There's no need for them to do that. I mean, if they put out a 4K with the movie on it, there's plenty of room for special features on it.
Exactly. I mean, the Police Story trilogy from Eureka has all the special features on there.
Mm-hmm.
Though I don't know if the 4K looks super great on it either.
Right.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Do you think it maybe they're avoiding it because they don't want to hear people talk about like, the special features look like shit or something?
No, I think they're doing it so they don't have to put out a region-free Blu-ray for the first two, which they can't legally do.
Ah, well done, Robert.
Because Criterion has the rights to those movies.
Nice.
But Criterion has not released them in 4K. So before we get into our conversations at hand, just wanted to ask you guys a simple question. Right now, what would you say is your label of the year?
Easy for me.
What is it?
Visual Vengeance.
Okay, why?
What more can I say about my love for SOV movies? And on top of that, if you just want to add some icing to the cake or whatever the the phrase is, the term, I think that for the price point that they're selling their films, you get some pretty nice packaging. I mean, of course, it's not going to be Vinegar Syndrome standards or even, Arrow hard box standards, nothing like that. But to receive a slipcover, a little booklet, sometimes a poster, a little package of stickers, special
Condom.
features seem to be nice. You get a condom in one, absolutely. And I think, I think if the one thing that might turn people off, because again, I find them to be pretty affordable, especially with the way prices are with boutique collecting right now. I think one thing that might turn people off though is they might see something like Splatter Day and see, a runtime Slaughter Day, yeah, sorry, and think, well, I don't want to spend $25-26 or whatever it is on a movie that's not even an hour long. So I could see that kind of driving some people away, but I've enjoyed every release so far, and I actually, I don't know about you guys, but I buy so much, and there will be ones that just sit there on my shelves till I eventually get around to it. Visual Vengeance, as soon as it gets in my hand, I'm like, pop it in.
I will say Slaughter Day looked like shit.
Oh yeah, but I mean, I'm assuming there's only so much you could fucking do with that,
I was listening to the Bay Street Video podcast, and they were talking about how when this movie came out, only 5 or 6 people bought it. back on back in the VHS days.
Okay.
And the cousin brothers who made it are now like UFO documentarians and have a pretty successful YouTube channel. Good for them. Good for them.
Did you
Hell
say?
yeah.
Did you say cousin brothers?
Yes.
That's their last name.
Yeah.
Uh,
They're like the Coen brothers, but they're cousins
okay,
and
all right.
brothers. Matt, what would you say your label of the moment is?
I think it would be hard not to say Vinegar Syndrome, only because that's what I've watched the most of from what I've picked up. So I'll make that my answer. I know that like Deaf Crocodile has put out a lot of stuff that I've liked so far, and I think that they're only going to get better. I actually did a like an Indiegogo of some new movie they're trying to restore.
Oh, cool.
So I'm pretty excited for that. But I also really liked Arrow for their box sets this year.
What has been your favorite Arrow box set?
Well, I know technically the Shaw Brothers #1 came out like right at the end of last year, but I don't think I got it until this year. So I really liked that. There was like the Dimogen trilogy.
Okay. I think that was last year as well.
Was it? Fuck. There's one that I was excited about that I didn't get to watch yet. It was like the like Japanese monster movies, like 100 Monsters.
I think that was last year as well too.
What about Cold War Creatures? Is that last year too?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, well,
really early this year.
Scratch them off the list.
Matt just starts throwing all this shit in the trash. Fuck it.
I like their all the Argento 4Ks they've been putting out. I like that they're making them all look the same, kind of like same artwork, kind of.
I'm very glad Synapse has picked up on that for their releases.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh, one last thing, Brian. Speaking of Visual Vengeance, did you get your newest ones from Grindhouse?
Yeah,
like,
that's
like
what
Blood of the
I've gotten all of them.
Chupacabras and Slaughter Day.
Yes.
I ordered mine from there, and I'm kind of upset because I got some like special slipcovers, and they don't match the others.
What do you mean?
Like the slipcovers for all the other movies, like had the same kind of like layout and artwork, you know?
Oh yeah, okay.
And these two are just like some like abstract kind of like.
I actually like Blood of the Chupacabras because you just see this crude little weird drawing on it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you though. But yeah.
No, I mean that's it. It's just I wasn't expecting that. I thought I was getting both of them for some reason, but now they're not gonna like look the same on the shelf.
I know. I'm sorry, buddy.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. All right. Yeah. So I'm kind of torn between two labels right now. One, I'll just say is probably runner up because I only own 2 releases from them, and that's from Australia Imprint. That Warrior set is probably going to be in my top 10 of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed their version of horror, and I've placed a pre-order for Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains and Testament, which hopefully I'll get in the next month or two. But I'm going to say this might be the year that Severin totally blows Vinegar Syndrome out of the water as my favorite label.
Interesting.
And I don't love everything they put out. Like, I have not pre-ordered anything from them since the Steckler set. But I'll probably pick up the 3 Thai movies that are coming out in November. I have a feeling that there's going to be a ton more, what's his name? A bunch more Franco coming out in November. I don't know. They just seem to be putting out much better releases and ones I'm more excited about. I mean, if they were offering a subscription service as well as Vinegar Syndrome, I would have a hard time choosing which one I'd want to go with.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're probably pretty similar priced if they would do it. I'm looking at their pre-order bundle from last month, and it's 5 movies for 149. I mean, I guess that's kind of a little more than. No, that's about the same.
But one thing, I mean, that would have to include their box sets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I gotta say, I just got in that Steckler box set. That's the first Severin box set I've ever purchased. I'm pretty impressed. I mean, 100-page book. How many films is it? 20 films. I think the packaging on it's really nice. It feels comfortable. It doesn't feel like ultra bulky for what you would imagine a set that size to be like. I like how it's kind of like a book. Just fold the page to your next film.
So I have gotten through 6.5 discs on there.
Okay.
And the stuff he made in the 60s and early 70s, I think, is the best stuff on there. The other day I watched The Trooper, which is disc 5, and I enjoyed that film. There were two versions on there. The Trooper was the one that came out theatrically and run 70-some minutes, and there's the director's cut Bloodshed, which is a shorter movie with a different soundtrack. And because of who I am, I like to watch the stuff as originally intended.
Mm-hmm.
That 70-minute movie did feel like it was 2 hours at some point, but he made it for $500. And it was so fucking meta. Like, he refers to his other movies as movies in his movies. And because, like, his ex-wife is the star of this one, who plays a version of herself who was in those movies, but then in one of his movies he also plays an actor who is in one of his other movies, and some of them are just so fucking meta that I'm in awe of it. I did watch yesterday for my first outing for my Halloween viewing, the Hollywood Strangler versus Hollywood Strangler. What the fuck is the actual name for it?
Oh, settle down.
Sorry, it was the Hollywood Strangler versus the Skid Row Slasher.
Mm.
And I chose to actually watch that with the Joe Bob Briggs commentary because the movie was silent. And
I was just about to say that's one thing I noticed when I was flipping through is there's several Joe Bob commentaries in that set. So I'm really stoked.
yeah, they're old. They're from the original releases when they were out on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
But it was informative, and that movie is pretty sleazy because a lot of the murders take place in front of an X-rated theater where they were showing a double feature of Deep Throat and The Devil and Miss Jones.
Ah, okay.
I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I would ever want to. I don't know how gross it would be, but I wouldn't have mind seeing that double feature in the theater back in the day. I wouldn't have mind seeing some of these Steckler movies in the theater, but I have one more before I get into the porn, which I'm not excited about watching.
Guys, I'm sorry. If you'll excuse me for 1 second, I'll be right back. Okay.
Yep.
Guys,
All right.
Speak amongst yourselves.
So I guess now's the part of the show where we talk about Brian while he's gone.
Yeah.
Brian's a hell of a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're talking good stuff.
I would
Okay.
never say that to his face. I would never compliment him. I would never, ever let him know that he's a good guy to his face.
Oh.
And I don't want there to be awkward silence because I want people to keep on.
Yeah,
So we are 4 subscribers away from hitting 50.
Are we? We still haven't moved yet.
I haven't checked since the other day.
Good God, what's going on?
I think you need to put up our last episode.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I just need to make a thumbnail.
Yeah, I'll send the next one. So Brian is back. We can stop talking about him now.
I'm sorry. I kept feeling like I was in one of those videos where like my voice should be muffled, like because I wanted to keep my identity. Like, okay, I feel better
All
now.
right. So, Halloween is here.
Yay!
And before we talk about Boardinghouse, let's talk about, some of the horror films that Vinegar Syndrome proper has released and what we would recommend to people.
I actually have to interrupt very briefly. Were we not able to go to VSU, VSP?
Oh, yeah, you can go to VSU, VSP, VSA.
We're fine. We're all good here.
All right. Brian, why don't you do your first one?
Okay. So the reason I asked that, and I just thought this would be fair to mention in the conversation, specifically, well, number one, to get your all's input on it, but two, for people who are maybe just getting into Vinegar Syndrome and might be looking at this for recommendations. As we know, Vinegar Syndrome has a good amount of horror movies that they've released. I think that a lot of them are very untraditional and very unconventional and things like that, and might not really scratch people's fancy. Especially if you're looking for something scary. Like, well, I was looking over my shelves and I was like, oh, I love that movie. But would anyone else? Oh, I love this one. Man, but it kind of sucks. I mean, so I was having a little bit of a difficult time compiling a list of films that I would feel like really cool about being like, man, you need to watch this movie. I think that you would really like this. It may scratch some itches for you that you didn't know you had. So my first one, I did go with a VSP release, VSP number 2, and that is Censor. I adore that film. It was actually one that when I was looking at my movies, I was like, why did I not include that on my top 10 VS list, actually? I really love that movie. It's about a woman who works for the British censoring with BBFC. And we have already established that she has a sister that has been missing. Her parents have basically kind of given up on the fact that she's still alive. We have to move on, kind of a thing. Well, this filmmaker who's into these video nasties, as he put it, wants her to review one of his films. So she's noticing in the plot, like, oh, this is very similar to what happened to my sister. And then as we move on and she watches another one of his films, she's kind of going rogue on this now, like going to local video stores and being like, hey, I know you have these guys' movies like behind the counter. And of course, they're all hesitant because they're illegal. Well, she ends up finding one and watches it and sees a striking resemblance to her sister in this film. So it's about her trying to find out what has happened to her missing sister. And I just think it's a delightful movie because this was from 2021, so it's a modern film, but it has a lot of film history in it. A lot of your video nasties, they're mentioned in the film, clips throughout it, and it does a fantastic, in my opinion at least, fantastic job of giving you a vibe that you might have missed from 80s slasher and even elements of kind of like creature feature horror films. I loved it. I can't speak highly enough about it.
I think we still need to talk about that one because I really want to revisit it.
Yep, we'll talk about that after people don't watch it. Forget about this episode. Matt, what is your first pick?
My first one, I actually popped it in earlier today to see if I could add it because I had always heard since it came out that people were adding it to their kind of yearly rotation. But I feel like it's going to have an asterisk next to it. There's a little caveat, and it is the WNUF Halloween special. I thought it was a really interesting kind of, just an interesting release, and I still
hold on, Matt, we're not doing partner labels.
Say what?
We're just doing.
We should allow it. We should allow it.
No.
I thought we were.
Proper Vinegar Syndrome films.
Oh man.
Sorry,
I watched
man.
that one for nothing. Okay, well then I'll go to
I feel your pain. I think I'm one of the only people who does not like that. I do not like WNUF special. I think it's fucking boring.
Well, the caveat was going to be that I think it works better as like a party kind of like a party thing, like having it on kind of deal.
Yeah.
But
I'll give you that.
so yeah, I was trying to watch different movies to see if there's new ones I can add to a list, since I always have the same movies on my list. Um, so I guess my first one will be Fade to Black, which we have talked about quite a bit. But I think the main reason I put it on there is because Halloween's kind of like, among other things, it's kind of like, you're dressing up to be something that you're not. You're like putting on a costume to be something else. And that was, kind of what, I forget what his name was. But that was just kind of what the main character was doing throughout the movie to, he wanted to be, a gangster or a Dracula or a vampire or whatever. And he just didn't want to be himself anymore. And so I think that is a good,
we've talked about that one ad nauseum on our
Yep.
our one of our most recent episodes.
Yep.
No, hold on. What is this? Dennis Christopher? What's his fucking name in the movie?
All right.
All right.
My first pick is an adult title.
Okay.
It is Dracula Sucks. I was going to have that one be the first one I watched from my Halloween movies, based on a review of our friend Johnny Mockney, which I am going to read right now. Hopefully he doesn't get mad. Not the most inaccurate adaptation of the Stoker book. It definitely keeps its value in the foggy, low-budget atmosphere and wild performances. Jamie Gillis actually does an accent and looks like a handsome guy from the 70s, beard and all. Totally fearless performance from the guy playing Renfield. He just puts it all on the table and makes bold choices, and I respect that. Plays it surprisingly conservatively with the sex scenes, with only a couple that qualify as set pieces. I'm pretty sure Dracula kills a guy by shoving his boner into his face. That's what I gathered anyways. There are some Mel Brooksy jokes that seem out of place but add to the charm. The third act plays out almost entirely with 80-yard lines for characters speaking off screen. Likely a last-minute tactic to salvage the incomprehensible footage and the lack of coverage. You gotta love those rush porn shoots. Anyway, it's cool that Vinegar Syndrome has preserved this movie forever in jaw-droppingly beautiful quality. Someone had to do it. Also, the guy who played Van Helsing was one of the vampires in the Salem's Lot miniseries.
I will have to pick that one up. I haven't purchased it yet. I've just been kind of on the fence. It's not been one that I'm like, I gotta have it, but I'll probably pick it up at some point.
I hope you do. You will enjoy it. All right, Ryan, what is your next pick?
Are you guys doing this in any particular order? By the way?
No. This just
Okay.
We're just doing 3.
Cool. Next up, I thought Madman deserved to be on the list. I know there's a lot of people like me that love like a woodsy horror movie setting, camping and all that, and this offers it. It is kind of slow. I feel like I don't know enough about it to actually bring it up in conversation because it's been a while since I've done the research, but I do feel like there was some attachment somehow with this one and The Burning, whether it be writer, director, I can't recall exactly, but it kind of feels the same. It's a slow burn, but it takes place in the spooky woods, and I love it. It's counselors taking care of kids and stuff, and they tell the scary story of Madman Mars. And of course, as the movie progresses, we find out that this fictional character from the story is real, and all of this happened, and they're camping on his property.
Yeah, it's just another version of Cropsy, isn't it?
That's what I was saying. There's some attachment to The Burning. I just can't remember exactly what it is.
I think it's The Killer.
But I mean, no one like as far as who worked on the film or anything.
No, because the Weinsteins wrote and directed the first
Mm-hmm.
one. Cropsy is just one of those legends out there.
Okay. My bad. I thought for some reason it ran a little deeper than that, but stuff gets kind of muddled.
That is true. Matt, what is your next pick?
My next one, I kind of wish I would have had the time to rewatch it. It was one of the first Vinegar Syndrome ones that I watched kind of back when it first came out. and I'm hoping that I remember it correctly, but it's Cemetery of Terror. Um, I believe that it happened on Halloween in the movie, right? Right.
I'm gonna have to revisit. I actually have those films on my list to revisit this year.
Okay.
So
So yeah, I'm pretty sure it happened on Halloween, and it's kind of just about these teens who kind of steal a body from the morgue to take it to a graveyard and perform a ritual on it to bring it back to life. And you know, they end up finding out that it's some crazy serial killer. But I remember watching it. I thought the gore was cool. I thought the story was cool. It was just kind of like a fun kind of movie. It is in Spanish, so you do have to read it. But I think it's kind of one I had never heard of, and I think it was that director has a couple other movies in Vinegar Syndrome, I think, and I thought it was a good intro to jump into those. But I think it was a good Halloween movie, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Cool.
nice.
I have to rewatch that one. It's on my list for this year's Halloween.
Nice.
Yeah, same. I had specifically put those three. What is his name? Is it Tobalina?
No,
What's
it's
his
not Tobalina. Tobalina was
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Tobalina directed Oriental Hawaii.
Okay, yeah, not the same person.
It's
Anyway,
Galindo.
yeah, Junior or something right in there, or Junior in there. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to rewatch those three films because when I was looking at them today, I was like, well, I can't really say if they should be on the list or not because I can't really remember them. So
Yeah.
All right. My next one is a classic because Wings Hauser is in it, and so is Pamela Ludwig. I am talking about, and the band Agent Orange, I am talking about Pale Blood. This movie has the right amount of cheese, the right amount of Wings Hauser. It's kind of scary. Plus, it's a fun vampire movie. And I think you can't go wrong playing this one in the Halloween season. And plus, I hear nobody talking about it except for us.
yeah, that was one, and I've told you guys before that vampire flicks have never really been any of my favorites. I enjoyed that one way more than I thought I would. You are right. It's just a good fun movie. I can't remember as far as how like effective the scares were, but of course that's all subjective anyway, right? But I do remember enjoying it.
It's a fun movie. All right, Ryan, what is your final pick?
This next one I kind of went with what I thought would be, I think this one fits Vinegar Syndrome the most of the three or the two that I mentioned so far, and that would be Nightmare Sisters. I'm sorry.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It's silly, it's goofy, it's sleazy. It has its elements of horror in there that are just over the top and extremely absurd. It's a wonderful film that I highly recommend. I just want to say this in closing. I almost did want to put the Amityville Horror on this list because I honestly adore that movie. That one was kind of harkening back to the conversation we were having earlier, Robert, as far as TCM2 and 4K and everything. This was very easy for me to be like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to upgrade this. I love that movie.
It's also way too soon.
What do you mean?
It's everyone who probably listens to the show has already bought the Amityville Horror.
Okay. Yeah. I got what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nightmare Sisters would be my last one.
I love Nightmare Sisters. I remember seeing that back in the day on USA Up All Night.
Mm-hmm.
And when Vinegar Syndrome put it out, I had no idea there was that much nudity in it. And I am glad. I am glad because it is a fun movie.
Were you guys big Silk Stockings fans?
I don't think I've ever seen an episode of that show.
Oh, I think it was on USA Up All Night. That's why I'm asking.
No, it was not USA Up All Night. It was on the USA Network.
Oh,
USA Up All Night was movies from dusk till dawn.
Okay.
Matt, what is your final pick?
Kind of like how Brian was saying, I was thinking about going to Amityville or Texas Chainsaw, but I figured they were kind of too new to the.
One's not even out yet.
Yeah. So I had a hard time picking a third one from what I've watched so far. So, have you guys heard of a movie called Petey Wheatstraw?
Yeah, no, you are banned. You are banned from talking about that one. Banned.
Matt, you go right ahead. I got you, buddy.
Well, I'm just gonna say the name of it then, and I'll be done.
I mean, honestly, like, I know there's a lot that I need to revisit and everything. I was truly trying to think of a list of like what people might actually. I'm not going to shove some weird ass fucking movie that most people are not going to enjoy. I'm not just going to say, oh, hey, you liked The Conjuring? You're going to love The Severed Arm. No, you know what I mean? So I was trying to think of it in a way of like, what could I actually hand someone and be like, I think this might get you into a cool world. You might.
But it's cool is in the eye of the beholder. Because I know my final pick is not cool by any standard, but it's the Joe Spinell classic, The Undertaker.
Ugh.
That one's been on my list to find.
It's so funny you guys are mentioning the ones that you are, because I actually added that one to mine as well, Robert. Not up to this list, but to watch in October. Because man, did I fucking hate that movie when I watched it. I was bored out of my mind.
I'm a huge Spinell fan, though.
Okay.
I mean, here's a guy.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I'm not saying that's to knock you. I should have thought that one out. But I really was. I bought that one after market with the slip. And I think I've spent like $60 or $70 on it. And I was like, why?
Oh, you overpaid. No, but think about it. Joe Spinell was in The Godfather 1 and 2. He was in Rocky. He wrote Maniac. The guy was also in. I mean, the guy is a great character actor, and
he is.
He made some weird fucking movies, and The Undertaker might have taken the cake as the weirdest one he's made.
Yeah, that's honestly the reason I'll like, as much as I just said I didn't like it, I will never get rid of it just because of the history of him and everything. It's just kind of neat to have it. And again, maybe I'll rewatch it and think differently. Who knows?
It's a fun movie, and let's talk about Boardinghouse. I'm going to read the synopsis of it. Nothing can prepare you for Boardinghouse. Jim, director John Wintergate, a psychic gigolo who wears a leopard print thong, rents a haunted house to beautiful women with no ties. From there, this underworldly slasher transforms to a sleazy, hallucinogenic maelstrom of gore, sex, chainsaws, pie fights, killer refrigerators, jacuzzis, beds that eat people, a new wave band called 33 and a Third, and a leading lady only known as Kalasu. Boardinghouse is the first shot-on-video horror film to be blown up to 35 millimeter and released theatrically. AGFA plus Bleeding Skull are thrilled to bring this 35 millimeter theatrical cut to home video for the first time in this 2-disc set, which also includes Psycho Killer, a previously unreleased alternate home video cut, and Sally and Jess, the previously unreleased family film from the makers of Boardinghouse. So I'm just going to say, I had never seen this movie until last year until I went to Dismember the Alamo. I had already ordered it from Vinegar Syndrome and seen it with an audience who I'm going to guess 90% of the people there had not seen it either. It became, at that instant, one of the best movies I had ever seen with an audience, right behind Miami Connection. And I couldn't wait to watch it on Monday, the next day when I was supposed to be receiving my Vinegar Syndrome package. I love this movie. There is a lot wrong with this film, but I absolutely love it because John Wintergate and his wife Calusu, who I think wrote this film as well, had no business making a fucking movie. There is nothing resembling story. I mean, there's a story, but the structure does not exist.
No, it is wrong in all the right ways, I think is the best way to put it. There is no, we could sit here and talk in circle. This is a so bad it's good film, but it's also respectable, I think, you know.
Is it respect? All right. I just got to
I
say,
can't
the
say
main
that it is.
character is so sleazy. He breaks every fair housing rule out in existence. That he is going to rent this house to hot females 18 to 25, no attachments, for $100 a month.
And also no men in the house, no pets, which he slides on, right? But
and he gets to live there. And all the women are okay with it. Something tells me at some point this was going to be a porn that they turned into a horror film when nobody wanted to have sex on camera. Because that is the plot of a porno film. Guy gets house, only rents it to hot women who all of them fawn all over him.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's trained in the ways of telekinesis. You know, he's a mysterious character.
Is he? He's a guy who sits in his office in his underwear because I guess that's the only way to practice telekinesis.
You know, one of my favorite things about this movie, and I'll go ahead and touch on it now since we're specifically speaking of our lead actor here, is just the way he speaks to the girls. So there's one scene where, and I guess we'll kind of cover all this later so we don't confuse people, but the telekinesis part is part of this scene that I'm talking about. This girl is laying on her couch. She's just gotten into an argument with her boyfriend, who finds out that she's living here, and she, you know,
Hold on, you're forgetting. He hires a private eye to find her.
Yes. Well, I wasn't forgetting. I just didn't know. I didn't know how much we were going to go into detail and back and forth and all that. Anyway, the whole thing I wanted to bring up, because it literally, I could not stop laughing. The first time I watched this, the second time, and the same on this viewing. This girl's asleep, and this gun that she has for protection starts turning towards her head. Okay. Well, the gun fires because someone is trying to kill her. They want her dead. So they're using their telekinesis to move this gun to shoot this girl while she's asleep. So what happens is the gun goes off, and our main guy runs in. He's like, "Hey, sounded like a gunshot. Are you okay? Oh, were you playing with your gun?"
Yeah.
Oh my God. Fucking love it. And then there's a woman trying to use her telekinesis powers to get a pack of yogurt out of the refrigerator. And he goes, it's like, you know, she's covered in yogurt at this point. It all comes flying at her, all this food and stuff. He's like, "You okay? What are you doing? You trying to clean the fridge?" It's just like...
So that was one of the most porno scenes in the movie.
Yes, because he then scoops her up, and it's time for you to take a shower. And yeah.
All right. You know, I think we're forgetting something. This movie does have a backstory that we learned on a computer screen from police department at the beginning.
Yes.
That noted researchers in telekinesis were found murdered by their young child, who was then committed to a mental institution. We also find out someone else was murdered in that house. We then go to the mental institution where the person was about to be released anyway, even though one of the people who worked there was against it. And then they made her, through telekinesis, take off her clothes and hang herself. Because
Very
the
necessary.
weight of the clothes would have brought the ceiling down, is what my 8th grade physics is telling me.
Yeah.
But
There was another part that made me laugh involving the main guy was when he was in the bathtub and we discover that he actually does have telekinesis, and he's got the girl in there and he's like talking about it, and he's like, yeah, I can move stuff with my mind, and he's just like, yeah, watch this. Like soap starts moving around, and I was like thinking that it was going to be like, oh, this guy's not doing telekinesis, he's just moving the soap with his dick, but he was actually using telekinesis.
you know what? There was a movie called Zap starring Scott Baio and Willie Ames. Scott Baio also had telekinesis, but he used it to unbutton women's tops. And I'm very offended that the sleaziest man in this movie did not do that. Because that seems something right up his alley. There are many lines that he would cross, like having sexual relations with his tenants. But yet, you know what? Nope. I'm not going to use my power to pop tops.
Because I think we're supposed to kind of like him, right? Like to a degree, he's not a 100% nasty guy.
What wasn't he?
I'm asking you guys.
I
don't know how to feel.
I mean, basically, the chicks had to be hot, so he was doing. Basically saying no fat chicks allowed in this house, which is an act of discrimination.
Okay, that's true. That is true.
I kind of like somewhat felt like you were supposed to have the idea that he was like kind of behind things at first. So that made me not like him.
It's so all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Because I've seen elements of that, and then of course, once the one woman's fiance or ex or whatever comes in, you kind of start to think, is he going to be it? And then of course we have the lawn care, the gardener,
also played by the main actor.
Yeah.
Was it?
They I think this movie was really ambitious with like, oh, we're going to keep the audience guessing, but what ends up happening, and this isn't necessarily to me like a knock against like my enjoyment of the movie, I love this movie, but I think they thought they had it planned out a little bit better than they did. Oh, we're gonna keep them guessing. It's like, what? Eventually, the audience, if you guys are anything like me, you just sort of turn that question off, and you're like, let's just see where this goes. Yeah. You stop guessing. You just start having fun with it.
I already figured out the killer was in the house, and I knew pretty well the guy wasn't it because he was not just released from a mental hospital, because he had whatever his career was and dealing with the drunkest client ever.
Oh, man. I'm so glad you mentioned him. I wanted to look up his name. He was great in this.
It was like, hey, I'm making a movie. You want to be in it? Only if I get to be drunk.
Yeah. Well, he seemed like, he just reminded me so much of Buck Flowers, Like I love the scene where he goes to our main actor's office with the papers and stuff that are supposed to be written up and everything. And he takes the cup of apple juice thinking that it's booze off the table. Well, our lead actor leans over to like tie a shoe or something. And this guy's talking and looking around. He's like, "Where'd you go?" And it seems so real that you have to think either A, this is a really underappreciated character actor, or B, he was indeed very drunk, or I guess C, it could be both. But he was just so charming when they're playing golf together. He falls over.
So I don't remember the character's name, but he does not. The only person who has a picture on the IMDb is John Wintergate.
Okay.
Yeah, I was getting confused by almost everyone in this movie. Like there were. I take it back. I think this guy was Joel Riordan, who died in 1982. And based on the age of his character, and it's probably him, he was on, if it's the same guy, was on such shows as an episode of Superman, The Adventures of Superman, Harbor Command, 2 episodes of Highway Patrol, 1 episode of Bat Masterson, 1 episode of The Rough Riders, 1 episode of Lock Up, which in 1959 did not do
anything until 1982 when he played a drunk in Boardinghouse.
That's a pretty big break.
What were you saying, Matt?
Oh, and the movie was dedicated to him. So, yeah. Jim, thank you for
just that
playing drunk.
I was confused by just quite a few of the characters, but there was one point in particular, like where the one brunette goes to the beach and gets murdered there, and then in the very next scene, the main character is with the brunette, and the whole movie I'm watching this, I'm like, never noticed there were two brunettes.
I think there were 3 brunettes, including the girl in the band, 33 and a third.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like she died, and then I was next scene, like worst cuts in any movie I've ever seen. But it's just like it goes right to that girl, and I was like, was that a dream? Did she not just get murdered? Or
I was right there with you. I have to admit that it kind of drove me crazy on this watch, because I found myself rewinding between those cuts and stuff so many times, as far as just trying to keep the characters, like, who is that? And I thought the same thing with that beach scene. I was like, what the fuck? And it just, God, it blew my mind. Yeah, they all just look the same.
yeah.
All right, I want to talk about the private detective.
Mm-hmm.
His ruse to get in the house was so complicated and had to work on so many different levels. Getting kicked out of a car by a woman, that the guy has to see him doing it. Then, basically, women, right? Invites him in the house to make a phone call. Ends up hanging out by the pool. Gets thrown into the pool and fawned over by some of the ladies in the house, and then gets invited up to take a bath with the hot Asian. You know, again,
Which I think was not in the movie at any point after that scene.
Again, that felt like a scene in a porno. Also, if I was the detective, I would be milking this for all it was worth and move in there. All right, one other thing I want to talk about is when the main actress is cleaning the house and basically sends everyone else to go eat pizza. That's a pretty big house for her to clean. The logic of her doing it by herself for a party where her band is going to play and her agent's going to be there, and their band is so successful that one of them owns a plane that he built himself. Oh, this movie was sleazy.
So one question I have about this, where I was getting lost on, so the main like spirit or whatever, Deborah, who is like, I guess she's not a spirit, but
she's a master of telekinesis and
villain.
crazy.
Yeah. So she's kind of like the one pulling the strings here, but then the main character teaches
Victoria,
the one girl, how to do some telekinesis stuff, and she's like practicing with her candle in her room. So after that, were the scenes where she was like doing the telekinesis and like scaring the other girls, were those in a dream? Was that actually her doing that in real life, or was that Deborah controlling her mind?
Huh. You know what? You're asking questions that they should have asked while writing the fucking script.
Yeah, that's an angle that's good. That's good.
Because I was just kind of like, I like wrote down some notes while I was watching this, and several times I just wrote down what the fuck is happening.
Yeah, if there's ever a movie to take notes on, Jesus Christ. Yeah. I also do love kind of random with where we are in the conversation, but I couldn't help towards the end of the film, once Deborah is kind of exposed and everything, that there's some scanner cop shit going on. Here's
the thing. when she comes there to move in, is she controlling the situation so she could move into her childhood bedroom, which would be more telepathy than telekinesis? As someone who's read almost every issue of the X-Men, there is a difference. Telekinesis, you just move stuff. You can't control someone's mind. Telepathy, you can control someone's mind. Charles Xavier, the leader of the X-Men, had telepathic powers and telekinetic powers, which is why he's an alpha-grade mutant.
Well, it seems like she must have had both, though, because, I mean, she was moving stuff and she made that nurse kill herself. So she must have, maybe
Again,
they just did not
they
know
didn't really set that up properly. They just talked about telekinesis, which means it's pretty poor writing.
What?
I did love when the was he actually a cop? The guy who he knows all the history on the house, and he shows up. You know, they're having this house party.
Yeah, he's a cop.
He's a cop. Okay, I love that whole scene where, I guess Deborah. I think we're supposed to believe that like she's kind of caught on to the fact about this guy sniffing around and asking questions. I'm going to get rid of him. So he pulls out his gun and he just wastes away that one woman who's just trying to hit on him and bring him a drink. And I love his screaming and the acting when he's like pointing the gun towards himself. Like, there are a couple of genuine, we're going for it, scream queen moments in this movie. One is from, did you guys say her name was Janet, the one girl with the soap in the tub and everything?
No idea.
I can't remember.
Okay, anyway, that lady, she had a great one when waking up from a nightmare. Over and over. And then the male cop before blowing his brains out. Now I do want to give a little bit of a nod because I feel like we're kind of on a bench of attack here. There's a lot of practical effects in this. Some of them work well, some of them don't. But I really love that they went there for like I feel like they really went for it with every scene, like, you know, with the woman holding her face and, you know, the eyeballs popping out and everything. And I liked the amount of gore that was in it. I thought it was good.
So, fun fact, if it wasn't for George Lucas, they wouldn't have made this movie.
Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe we have to get together again next week. What are you talking about?
So they were when they were in the planning stage of this film, they read an article from George Lucas who was talking about how he wanted to make a movie shot on video, and they realized how much cheaper it would be to do that compared to film. So he inspired them to make it. What I can't figure out is why they would put it on 35 millimeter. Because when I saw it last year, it still looks like a really bad shot on video movie.
Yes.
And I can't imagine getting it blown up on 35 millimeter would have looked good in a theater back then. I'm sure it got theatrical distribution. I just would have been kind of pissed off seeing it in 1983 when it came out if it looked like that.
That actually leads me to a question, though, in regards to something we were talking about. So, with the plot and everything, and telekinesis versus telepathic. So, what are we supposed to? What is the outcome of the outline of the demon with the demon eyes and stuff like that? Is that just Deborah outer body?
You're talking about the Pac-Man ghosts?
Yeah.
So
you know what I'm talking about, right? With like the red eyes, and it'll show like the
So again, if we're looking at a little bit more exposition, I'm guessing her parents experimented on her, and she killed him, and that's the way she sees herself. And when she is in her crazy phase, that's how she wants others to see her. Again, I'm thinking of it thinking about some things the filmmakers did not think about.
Sure, and you mentioning that also does, for people who are watching this, the ending of our film with Deborah kind of goes really deep into she had a very troubled relationship with her family. She was caught in bed with her father and killed her mother. Yeah, it tries to get really deep there at the end, which I guess is another one of kind of like the fascinating, because right before this you got 33 and a third playing next to a fucking pool.
Yeah.
And there's a guy playing with fire and all this shit, and then next thing you know, we're like, oh wow, this girl was fucked by her dad. That's kind of deep.
Now, there is a longer cut that Slasher Video released that's over 2 hours long. The reviews I've read of it on Letterboxd make it sound even more painful than the 90-minute version.
Yeah, I was gonna say, does that maybe like fill in some gaps here, because they clearly cut a lot out of this thing, not well.
I mean, think about it. In 1983, no audience was going to sit through nearly a 2.5-hour horror film, especially of this low quality. And especially in the theaters where this would have been shown at, it would have been shown on a double feature with another movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this would have been in Grindhouse, basically with the remainder of Grindhouses. I don't see what would have been a theater chain showing this back then. I know in Stephen Thrower's Nightmare USA, he talks about it. I was going to read about it, but I didn't. I couldn't walk over to the ad hoc bookshelf and pull it off of it to do some research. I let you guys down.
No, I looked into some of the stuff because when I first watched this, I'd remembered that, and I was looking on the disc. I'm like, well, where is this super long cut? And apparently, they decided not to release it because it wasn't ever like, I can't remember who it was from AGFA that was discussing it, or Bleeding Skull. I'm not sure which company.
But it wasn't authorized.
Yeah, like it wasn't the way that it was actually supposed to be, and they didn't want to just throw something on there just because they could. I couldn't imagine, aside from what you guys are talking about, like filling us in on some of these questions that we have, I couldn't imagine a 2.5-hour long version of this. I do admit that there are points that lag from it. There's a lot of, oh, hey, I'm in a bikini. Oh, rip it off and splash water on me. Oh, there's a lot of filler like that in it. But I wouldn't shorten it by much. I would say maybe there's about 15, 20 minutes worth of filler in this film that they could have taken up by explaining more,
This is a problem with outsider art, and I'll use that phrase with this one. I mean, these people were not trained actors, directors. They had the money to make a movie, and it felt that they got the financing and rushed to get it out for some reason or another. It's a fun movie. I mean, I think one of the tagline for the movie was, "It's not, the rent won't kill you."
Yeah.
But I mean, just from a craftsmanship angle, they did not put the time in to craft a well-written movie. If you look at something like John Carpenter's Halloween or Sean Cunningham's Friday the 13th, are either of those the greatest movie ever made? Not by a long shot. But there's a structure to them. The writing is spot on. There isn't a dull moment in that film. Or something like Sleepaway Camp. The directors are well trained. The writers put together a competent story where we're not arguing on huge logic flaws.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I agree. I think it may be worthy of a conversation, whether now or at a different point in time. Like, why? What'd you say the budget of this was? $500?
No. I don't know what the budget for this one was.
Okay. I guess what I'm saying is, like, I think there may be a difference in how people view movies like this. Like I find myself watching a low budget SV production, like or whatever you said it was, 30. What did you say, 35 millimeter shot on film?
It was shot on video and blown up on 35 millimeter.
Oh, okay. You know, and I guess I personally allow a little bit of grace with that, where I want to see what lengths did these poor entrepreneurs go to create a film within the limits that they could. And I guess we could argue that night and day, right? Like,
So
me personally, I find it hard to put up against, you know, Friday the 13th or something like that. Friday the 13th was low budget, sure, but was it as low budget as this? Was it within the same means as?
But here's the thing: they had the money to put it on 35 millimeter, and I'm going to guess they edited on 35. Yeah, they edited on film.
So I can't find the budget, but it does say just to blow it up onto the 35 millimeter cost $35,000.
Wow! Holy shit!
Yeah, and they probably saved a bundle on film. It makes no sense they put it on, and probably to get it theatrically distributed, they had to put it on 35 millimeter or 16 millimeter at the time. But all right, so I'm going to go back to Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return the Fucker, which in my opinion might be the best shot on video movie that I've ever seen. Was it ambitious? Yes. But the guy who made that had his apartment building, he had his friends, and he used what he had to the best of his abilities. Same thing with something like Slaughter Day, or even the what was the one that came with the condom and the zombie baby?
Necrophiles.
Yeah. Again, the directors of there used what they had to make, especially with Slaughter Day and Necrophiles, overly ambitious movies. Suburban Sasquatch was shot on film, right?
Shot on film, edited on video, right?
Okay, yeah, something like that. So that one doesn't count, but
it does. It's better than anything we've watched.
It was like a low-budget version of Prey.
So I did.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because I'm going to reel some poor motherfuckers into watching that. Do you like Prey? This is like the Walmart version.
It's the Asylum Films version of Prey. All right.
I did just find the budget. It's $10,000.
Yeah. Okay.
$10,000 plus a $35,000 to blow it up on film.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look. Here's the thing. This was the first shot on video horror film. It earns its place for that.
Shot on video theatrical release, right? Like not first shot on video.
I think it was the first shot on video horror film. Matt,
I think
check
I
the
saw
old
that.
Google machine on that one.
I think I saw that too.
Really?
First shot on video horror film.
Brian, your brain looks like it's about to explode.
Well, I was thinking McPherson tape, but obviously I guess that couldn't.
That was early 90s.
I don't know if that's technically horror either. Is what I was.
But that was also early 90s.
Or
late 80s. I mean,
okay.
This was filmed in 82, released in 83.
Sure.
All right. Brian, how many sleazy landlords would you give this movie?
I think 4 is a fair rating for this because I really do. I love it. To the point that I could continue to discuss this movie for hours. There's so many questions I have. But
I'm sure you can find the director online. Send him an email, and he'll be more than happy to answer them for you.
He's up watching it right now. He's trying to make an egg float. My favorite edit in the movie, by the way, was when our cut to our main character with the hangover after the beach scene. He's just staring at the egg and it's floating. No, I think it works both for a solo watch if you're into these kind of oddities, and it would work really well with an audience. And Robert, I'm very jealous that you got to experience this with a crowd that size, because I'm sure it was amazing. Um, it is full of intentional humor. There is unintentional humor in there as well, obviously with the budget restriction like they had. But I really feel like they went for it. I feel, you know, I watch enough of these SOV films that some of them you can tell that some of these people think like, oh, I've got it in the bag just because they have a camera and a few friends will help them. When those people actually give it them all, that's what boosts a movie like this. And we have character actors like the fucking drunk guy that I can't remember his name, and all these people. I feel like the majority of them really were giving it their all, and I appreciate the hell out of it, and I'm certainly glad that I own it. So yeah, I think 4 all the way.
Matt, how many sleazy landlords would you give this movie? You're on. You can't hear you. We can't hear you.
I wanted to like it more. Because I remember when it was announced, I remember everyone being like, yes, we're finally getting Boardinghouse. And I had no idea what it was, but it was hard for me to make it through the movie, honestly. And to give you context, I watched Monster A Go-Go this morning, which was like barely a movie. And I felt like that was structured better than Boardinghouse.
Man, I feel sorry for you for Steckvember when we get to that.
And yeah, so yeah, I mean, I understand like the historical importance with it and everything, but for me, I can't see myself, I don't know, recommending it in so much more than just the historical aspect of it. So I'm gonna go 2.
Okay, I'm gonna read my letterboxed review. This is a movie that looks and feels like a porno instead of a horror flick. Sleazy guy who experiments with telekinesis, inherits a house, and turns into a boarding house for hot women ages 18 and 25. I'm pretty sure that goes against every fair housing rule. He also hooks up with most of the women he rents rooms to. Between all the loving and massages, there are some deaths. This movie makes no sense, and that's what makes it a wonderful piece of shot-on-video art. I am giving this movie 4 sleazy landlords.
Nice.
Before we go, what have you guys watched anything this week that you really enjoyed? That's not Vinegar Syndrome related.
This was a bad week for movies for me. I mean, besides Boardinghouse, and I just mentioned Monster A Go-Go. Those were just a couple slogs. I did watch The Munsters, and that one was also not great. There were some things that I liked. I thought that the guy who played Herman was genuinely like perfect for the role. I thought he was really funny in a couple parts, but overall, I just thought it was like a real cringy movie.
I'm hearing very mixed reviews on it. I have no intention of watching it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to just see what it is. But if you're ever bored one night with literally nothing to do, but and then other than that, I watched this new documentary about the original It, called Pennywise.
Okay.
And it was just like interviewing pretty much every character that was still alive, basically.
Like the miniseries, is that what you're?
Yep.
Okay.
And it was like, I had heard a lot about that already, but there were a couple like cool things I didn't know, like it was originally supposed to be like an 8-hour long epic directed by Romero and written by what's his name, Larry Cohen.
Ooh.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
But then the studio was like, no, we're not doing 8 hours. So they like Romero and Cohen like left immediately.
Rightfully so.
And then the kid in it who had like the inhaler, who was like, this is battery acid.
Mm-hmm.
That kid, the guy that plays him when he grows up, is the main guy from Fade to Black, and I never realized that either.
Oh wow.
Dennis Christopher, who was also in Breaking Away, and Leonardo DiCaprio's lawyer in Django Unchained.
Oh yeah. Oh nice.
Oh, shit. Okay, I didn't know that one. That's cool.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm a wealth of knowledge. Brian, what have you watched this week that
And also, Laser Blast, right? Wasn't
I don't
Dennis
think he
Christopher?
wasn't in Laser Blast. I can
What
guarantee.
am I thinking then? It was some alien movie. What the fuck was it? Anyway, yeah, well, Matt's looking that up. Let's see. What have I watched? So we watched Hocus Pocus 2. That's one of my wife's. Hocus Pocus is one of her favorites, so we watched that last night. I actually found it to be pretty cute. I enjoyed the film for what it was. I mean, there's not really a whole lot to really say about that one, right? It's Hocus Pocus. Complaints about it where we open up with a lot of CGI wide shots that just I actually wondered for a moment, like, is this a cartoon? It looked really bad. But yes, after that, I watched the 4K from Scream Factory of Child's Play 3. I know I am very much in the minority on that film, but I love it. I have a tremendous amount of fun with it, and I was very happy to rewatch it. Those are the first two that cut in my head at first. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was talking about in our little chat earlier. Yesterday I watched Freaky with Vince Vaughn.
I need to see it.
And I bought it like a year ago when it went on sale after it initially came out. And I at that point I heard it was by the guy who directed Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You. Both films I really enjoyed, so I figured I'd give this a chance. And for some reason I just thought it was going to be a straight comedy. But man, it's pretty gory. The whole Freaky Friday aspect of it is great, where both actors get a chance to act, and Vince Vaughn acting like a 17-year-old girl might be one of my favorite things ever. I'm also glad that there can't be a sequel to it. But
Just a one and done.
I mean, I guess with the method that it happened, it could happen to other people, but if there was going to be a sequel, it would have been announced already. And if you don't have Vince Vaughn in there, there's no need for the movie. The other one I watched this morning was called Ghost House. It's from Shout Factory. It was on a double feature with The Witchery, and this was the third movie in the Italian La Casa series.
I like Ghost House. It's yeah, I like that one actually.
I did that creepy clown doll.
Yeah, I thought it was a cool flick. It's definitely a slow burn, but I'm a sucker for the setting. So yeah, I like that one.
This is my review from Letterboxd. A creepy kid, plus a creepy clown doll, plus the house where they filmed House by the Cemetery, equals a derivative yet fun horror film involving ham radio operators.
Nice.
I think the Blu-ray is since out of print. I hope Severin or Vinegar Syndrome picks this up along with The Witchery. Though I would guess it would be Severin since they already released La Casa 5, otherwise known as Evil Dead 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That one would pair well with Chill Factor, I think. Always think of those two films.
I have not seen Chill Factor, but I have not seen The Witchery either, which I think I'm going to watch tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not referring to The Witcher. I was talking about Witch House,
Yeah.
or whatever the name. Yeah,
Ghost House.
Ghost House. Yes.
Well, that does it for this week. What movie shall we talk about next week?
I'm not at home around my movies, so I don't know. Yeah, if it's up to me, I'm just up to my sister's DVDs. We can. So far, I see Friends. Yeah, Free Willy. A funny story. One of my buddies got me for Christmas three 3 or 4 years ago. There was a Free Willy set that he found online that came with like the kids' necklace of like the little whale on it. I don't know where that's at anymore, but I'm sure I have it buried in some box somewhere.
I once had a friend who would refer to his girlfriend as Free Willy.
Okay.
I thought it was because it was her favorite movie. It turned out because she was obese.
Ooh,
Aw,
that's mean.
I was thinking it's sexual, which is bad enough.
Yeah, no, he was a dick. This guy was a dick.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Good grief.
All right. So what shall we talk about?
They're not together anymore, are they?
Oh God, no. God, no.
Hey guys, meet Willie. I don't know. What are you guys in the mood for? Well, I know we need to talk about was it natural?
Oh yeah, let's talk about that Fun City edition of
Natural Enemies, that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Or should we stick with just horror? Because that doesn't seem
Actually,
like a horror film.
let's just stick with horror this month.
Okay. The first one that comes to my mind, just because I can see us all having like a lot to say about it. What do you guys think about Scream?
Let's do it. Let's talk about the original Scream.
I feel like that would be
Done.
a good conversation, right?
Done.
Do you feel that way? You looked like you just pooped your pants when you suggested it.
Well, I said that because I know that I know your thoughts on it, Matthew, and I also know how I share those, and I also share Robert's thoughts. So I was kind of thinking that would be one that you have a lot of people who think that was kind of the destruction of horror, but then you also have the whole side of like, well, it kind of revived it in a way. So it just seems like a good conversation piece.
Yes. Next week we're going to talk about Scream from 1996, not 2021.
Wait, there was another one?
Yeah, in my mind there were really only 2 Screams, but neither here nor there. We are going to talk about Nev Campbell, Drew Barrymore, Rose McGowan, Henry the Fonz Winkler, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, not yet Arquette, and Wes Craven's Scream.
And there's a good soundtrack to talk about there too.
Yes. Oh, and we're also forgetting Matthew Lillard and the guy who's not Jared Leto.
Yeah,
but we think is Jared Leto.
The guy with the worst name possible.
Skeet Ulrich.
Skeet Ulrich. Yeah.
Who was the star of one of my favorite TV shows, Jericho. So
okay,
we have a lot to talk about next week. So all we're going to talk about is Scream.
Nice.
Okay.
All right, we'll see you next week when we talk about Scream.